Hi, my name is Liz Moctezuma-Manzanero, and I study textiles and apparel design here at the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah, so just tell me a little bit more about yourself as a designer and an individual.
I like to experiment with geometrics in my designs. I also like to incorporate a lot of biodegradable materials like organic cottons, linens, as well as a pop of color. I like corals, tangerines, those kinds of shades. I'm really interested in making sure that my designs are considerate for people, like who's working behind the people making those fabrics, and also making sure it's aesthetically innovative and pleasing and contemporary. A lot of my designs, I try to look at social ideas and see how I can make it different. I like to experiment with it being long or short, and pushing femininity and masculinity in between both of them.
So what's the inspiration for your collection? It could be a designer, a person in your life, time period, culture.
Yeah. So I'm a Christian, and so that was very much the beginning of my inspiration for this design, because I think growing up I didn't see a lot of clothing that covered my body, so that was conservative, but that was contemporary or modern and stylish in a way. So this collection, I wanted it to be long, but also kind of experimenting with space and making it flowy and seeing, can that be beautiful and can people want to wear it? Can it be cool? But I don't want it to be tight fitting. So I was experimenting with that, but I also wanted it to be cool for men as well, and kind of testing why can't we have a lighter shade here? Can they wear something flowy? Can the woman wear something that might be a little bit more restrictive, but it's innovative and pushing the geometrics and the design. So I was also inspired by kelp and kind of the movement of that, and I wanted to incorporate it to make sure the designs were flowy, but also keeping in mind the performance. I need people to move in these clothing, so I didn't want it to be avant-garde either. Definitely day-to-day wear, but also something interesting that people would want to wear for a long time. So it's not too trendy, and definitely pushing my boundaries and making sure I experiment a little bit in my design.
Cool. Yeah, and then kind of just going off of that, just tell me a little bit more about your creative process, and also the designer process of you being in the lab working on it and the time you put in.
It starts with thinking about the purpose. I don't want it to be surface level clothing. We have so much of it. What am I bringing? What am I adding? What am I changing? Am I just designing into systems that already exist, or am I being oh, there's somewhere else that we can do about this? Definitely quality. So I started with, who am I designing for? And I wanted to design for the Christian woman that isn't religious, that definitely is out of the box and innovative in her relationship with God. And then I start sketching. So after the words and thinking for who it's for, I start thinking about them, what would they wear? What would they want to see? What colors do they like? And then I start thinking about different skin tones, this looks more flattering on this skin tone versus this person. They're built, their shoulders are here, maybe they're insecure about that, or maybe they want to highlight a different area of their body. How can I show that in design? And then I also start sketching. I start being oh, this could look different, the seam could be here, I could construct this way. Is this possible right now? How do I want to go about designing it? And then I finish and finalize my sketches, and from there I start patterning it out. Sometimes the patterning doesn't work out as you sketch it, so you're oh no, I have to kind of design this a little bit differently. Then you go back, you drape it on the form, and then you're I kind of like this, let me pass it on to the pattern. And then you sew it, and you're oh, I don't like how I sewed that, let me redo it. And then you're oh wait, I kind of want it lined. Will that add thickness? Is this cool enough for them to wear? And so you think about all those things and being oh, from the beginning to the end. And then it's a lot of work in between, and so you have to like the process, because if you only like the end result, then you're kind of I don't know, hating the rest. So you kind of have to fall in love with each thing, making sure you're meticulous with everything. And so that's kind of my process in going with it.
Do you think you've fallen in love with the process, and how would you say that's been for you?
Yeah, I think I've come to everything and be it's worth it. You're gonna see it in the end and not just be oh, the end result will say if I really liked it at all or not. So it's been a moment. I think part of it requires discipline, because you're not gonna like it and you're not gonna feel good doing it. Sometimes you have to come into here and sew, and you're I don't want to. So you have to do it even though it doesn't feel good. So even though I haven't fallen in love with it, I think God has helped me come in when I don't want to, or kind of understand that it is useful, and it does end up in a result.
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, how do you feel about having like your collection in the fashion show? Are you excited to have like your collection in the show, and like how do you feel about the final product when it will be?
Okay, yeah, I am really excited to show like on a fashion runway. I haven't done that before. I've seen like Austin Fashion Week, but there's this kind of on a road. So having it kind of on an elevated platform and like seeing them walk in it is definitely going to be super cool. And then just other people looking at your work, what you spent like 4 months working on, it will be super interesting for me. And yeah, I'm really excited to see like all the lights, the models, the makeup, and just kind of seeing it come to life and it being wearable.